all we have done here is massively erode brand America. It's gone from freedom, generosity, military might, prosperity, risk aggressiveness, opportunity, rule of law, to toxic uncertainty. And that brand does not command margins. It commands negative margin.
Hi, everyone. This is Pivot from New York Magazine and the Vox Media Podcast Network. I'm Kara Swisher.
And I'm Scott Galloway.
How you doing, Scott? Guess what? Guess what?
What,
we are
Kara?
Webby winners
my God.
again.
Oh, my
Pivot.
God. I just want to thank the Academy.
Okay. The Pivot won the Webby Award and the People's Choice Award, both of them.
Yeah.
We like that the people love us for the best
And the
business
judges,
podcast,
right?
And the judges. Yeah, the judges and the people. We got a lot to get to today, but let's take a moment. And also, you won for Prof G. What did you win over there?
We run for Prop G Markets or for Raging Moderates. We were an honoree, which just means please send in your $1,300 a year next year to be considered for something.
No.
And then, by the way, this business, we should be in the awards business.
Yeah.
This is such a racket. And then Prop G Markets won the People's Choice Award, but not the Judges Award. So the cultural elite or the deep state of podcasting
judged you wanting.
Has decided they're smarter than the people who picked Prop G Markets. But Pivot, there was just sort of no argument across anybody.
Across the board. Will this make us more obnoxious or less obnoxious? Probably more.
I think we're pretty much hitting the limit of obnoxious. I can't imagine. Yeah, I don't see us getting more obnoxious.
I got a lot of congratulations, and I'm like, it's the Webby. It's the Webby. We're very happy. We have to think of a 5-word acceptance speech for that, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right. Scott Galloway is my husband.
There you go.
I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea? Think of one. You're going to go get it. Someone's going to go get
dinner,
it. We have to think of 5 words.
My team's been to the dinner. They love it. They say it's a ton of fun.
It is. Oh, I love it. I remember I got the Lifetime Achievement, whatever.
Oh, Jesus,
You're going to get one. It was so much fun.
Lifetime Achievement Award.
It was lovely. I had a lovely time there. I had met lots of lovely celebrities that I like to this day.
I want a midlife crisis award. I want an award for best midlife crisis, like really leaning in.
Let me ask you a pressing question. If you could win any award, right? You and I are not award people. We really aren't. But what would it be? What award would you want to have?
Other than the Adult Video Tripod Award?
Obviously.
Tripod Award. That's good. I just made that up. My nickname in the fraternity. Don't ask me why.
Oh,
don't ask me why.
Okay. What would be the award? A real life award.
A real one? I don't know. The National Medal of Freedom, whatever it is, with at the White House, they pin it on you.
They put the thing on you?
Maybe it'd be at the Kennedy Center. I don't know.
Yeah, no, not anymore. No.
That'll come back, though.
Yeah, I know.
I don't really care about priests. Don't want a Nobel.
Did you win any awards in your life? Have you won any awards?
I was thinking about that. The last award I won from these, other than these Webbies, is in.
Yeah.
Did you have a high school poll?
No.
Most
really.
handsome, most successful, most likely to succeed.
No.
You didn't have that in your high school?
No, I went to a snotty private school. But go ahead. They don't do that.
I did. I won most comical and Steve Martin, which dates me.
Oh wait, is there a Steve Martin Award and most comical?
Well, they did these things like Richard Pryor, so we could get the black kids. I mean, we thought we were being woke, and yet we were being very racist. And we had all these, celebs that you were supposed to be in the 80s, like, the Blondie, or, they said, this is who you are.
So
and they picked
Steve Martin, that's perfect, actually.
I won Steve Martin, and I won most comical.
Oh, I see that. Most comical, that's so funny. You weren't like best, handsomest job.
No, not most likely to succeed, not smartest, not most likable, none of that.
Yeah.
None of that. Yeah.
No. I have won. I won the Bunn Award in my freshman year of college, which was
That's
the
something
journalism.
To do with journalism?
Yeah, it was. I won as a freshman. Seniors got it, and it upset the entire ecosystem, and the seniors hated me for winning it as a freshman.
I think they hated you for other reasons.
Yes,
I'm just going to go out on
true.
another limb.
That's a fair point. I won a Loeb Award once. I won that.
That's big. That's journalism, right?
Yeah.
This was all. You're doing what I'm doing. You asked me, not really caring. You just
no.
wanted me to ask you.
I didn't know. I wanted to actually.
Keep in mind, we only have 90 minutes here, so rifle through your awards.
No, I haven't won much. I would like to win the MacArthur Genius Award. That's what I would.
Oh, that would be pretty cool.
That's the one I want.
You know what award?
You can't be thirsty for it to win it, though. You have to pretend you're.
You know what award I aspire to, but will never happen just through randomness, is there's something called I think it's called the Carnegie Award, and it's basically the Burning Car award, and that is they give about, I think, between 60 and 100 a year to people who have risked their own life on the spot to save someone else's life. So it's literally rushing into a burning house.
Interesting. I would run into the burning house to save
I think you would.
I would. I'm a burning house runner into.
That's
a good award.
It's a really interesting, I love those sorts of philosophical questions, though, that in faced with that type of situation, and by the way, to be more thoughtful, men are more likely to run out of the field and try and save their comrades and get shot doing it, and women are more likely, and we hate to establish any sort of gender rules here, but women are more likely to let's think this through and not be idiots.
Yeah.
Like, how do we accomplish the mission?
Without dying. And
slow down and be more thoughtful. Yeah. And quite frankly, that peanut butter and chocolate is really useful in all situations, including combat situations, right?
Are you good in a jam? I did Outward Bound. I was pretty good in a jam a lot.
I'd like to think that
panicky.
I don't.
I can see you doing this.
We're all gonna die. We're all gonna die.
We should do like a survival thing. That would be interesting.
Yeah, no.
You'd want me along.
I'm good at calming down emotionally fraught situations when people get upset. Yeah. I break up fights a lot at bars. Not a lot. I've done it like 3 or 4 times.
I always establish dominance, and that's how I work.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I was surprised. I was really kind of like, it was sort of Lord of the, I did Outward Bound and a bunch of other things like that. And I literally was like, I shall be running this now. We shall do what I say. But
I find as I get older, I'm really happy for someone else to take charge.
Yeah. Yeah,
really happy.
You'd be a good team member.
Especially if she's wearing leather and I have to pay her a couple €100. But
leather. Yeah. Anyway, we have a lot to speak. Anyway, congratulations on the Webby again. We're very excited. Thank you, Webby Awards.
And congratulations to our team.
And team, yes, all the team. Yeah.
Lara,
Shall we name
Zoe,
them? Go
Taylor.
ahead. Good. Zoe, Taylor, Lara, everybody. And name everybody. Drew is amazing for us. We've got.
Who's Drew? The tech guy who's been with me 15 years. Memo to self. Remember Drew.
Anyway, do we thank Vox? Yeah, Vox. Sure. Nishat. Yay.
Nishat Kurwa. Vox.
Vox.
Yay, the suits. The corporate.
They don't really
the headquarters.
Suits. That's not fair. They don't wear suits. They're not suit people. They're not suit people. They're actually lovely to work.
Can you imagine if we've been with them 7 years? What does that say about how easygoing and nice they are?
They have to be.
Between the two of us, we've been with them. Really the chances for a blow up between you, me, and any third party.
Yeah. Are big. Has he ever yelled at us? No, he never does.
No, Jim's the nicest guy. Jim's the nicest guy in media.
Yeah, he is.
He really is. He's the nicest guy in media. Anyway, enough about us.
Enough about us. Thank you, Webby Awards. It's well-deserved by us, let's just say. Okay, all right. We've got a lot to get to today, including there's so much going on. Elon announcing he's stepping back from DOGE following Tesla's terrible earnings report, just as we predicted. Trump sends the markets on yet another wild ride because he's so ridiculous. But first, Instagram co-founder Kevin Systrom testified this week that the app was underfunded after Meta bought it, boosting the FTC's argument the company was illegally anti-competitive. Systrom said that Zuckerberg was not investing in the Instagram app because he saw it as a threat to Facebook, which he felt was better. He was incorrect, but that's what he felt. I've interviewed Systrom, and let's listen to this clip because they used it in the trial to try to impugn Kevin Systrom.
We were struggling to keep the setup, $500 million valuation, and then Mark came along and was like, hey, how about I double that? And you get to keep working on what you love, and you get all the expertise of Facebook. You get to work with me, Cheryl, Shrep, et cetera. That sounded like a really good deal. And if you look in retrospect, I think it was a great deal. Think about all the things we've accomplished being part of Facebook, all the things we have plugged into, whether it's hiring, spam fighting, the ad system. I mean, we have thousands of salespeople who are basically selling ads for Instagram, and we snapped our fingers to access them. Right. So a lot of really great stuff.
Snap your fingers?
Yes, I snapped my fingers.
No,
but I guess my point is like...
I get it. It's like which would have happened without the other kind of thing.
I mean, I bet you we would have been successful as an independent company as well.
So they were using this to say that he was happy there. And now let's listen then to a clip from 2023 at South by Southwest where I interviewed Kevin.
I think the worst part of the sale was just like trying to both accomplish something great with the company and also merge it into a company that didn't quite know how to look at you. Were you a competitor? Were we excited to own you? Like, it's like a roommate who moves in and you're like, oh, like this person's really cool, but also their stuff's everywhere.
Right.
That's kind of what it felt like for 8 years. But
bad roommate.
Yeah, it's like, are there any good roommates? I don't know. Maybe that's the reason why like people shouldn't have roommates. But it was challenging, but we did great things.
That's the attitude that Kevin had for a long time. He was very frustrated internally. Mark was petty with him, I think, and jealous. I think that's no question. It's an interesting trial. It was interesting that they had Kevin there, and not interesting Evan Spiegel, who I interviewed yesterday, by the way, in Washington, at Snapchat, who had turned down, and then Facebook proceeded to blast them by taking all their ideas. Any thoughts on this? I mean, I think people publicly try to put on a good face, right? You've been in these situations, Scott.
Yeah, look, Kevin strikes me as a very talented entrepreneur. I don't doubt that anything he says there's some veracity to it. But, he cashed their check. What a shocker. The current CEO or the CEO was on top and wanted to maintain his platform, his kind of firstborn, Facebook, maybe even at the expense of Instagram. But the thing that sort of countered all this is whatever he was feeling or whatever resources he was trying to starve one of the kids from, he clearly changed his mind, because Instagram is now responsible for over half of ad revenue and is growing faster. And so at some point,
it's a better product.
At some point, the Zuck realized this and has absolutely turned it into a monster of business. So that may have been true then, but clearly, if that was true, Mark has seen the light. And what I have found, or what is interesting, I had dinner with Jonathan Haidt the other night, and he actually said, I get so emotional and biased about this stuff. He said some of the controls that Meta has put in place for parents, even though they're not easy to use and you can criticize them, he said the one that gets away with more than, or doesn't get the scrutiny it deserves, and he thinks is actually the most mendacious, is Snap.
Really? Interesting. Why?
Well, things like their add-on feature where you can, the core components of it, he kind of said are sort of tailor-made, likely unintentionally, for drug dealing and for people reaching out to minors, because that feature where you can add on people near to you, immediately it adds people near to you, is perfect for a drug dealer.
I suppose. I would push back, because I think they've always been done a lot of moderation. They've always, when they have a problem, they fix it. They don't bellyache about it. There's they had a whole problem with I'm just saying they fix things quickly, and they do moderate. They moderate much heavier, and they don't. What I'm saying is the attitude isn't, "Ugh, what are you talking about?" It's like, "Oh, we should fix that." I think I would agree. I think it's a locational thing, and it's more for your friends, and therefore it opens it up more. But I have kids on it. I would rather have them on Snapchat than Facebook, because I think they got inundated on.
Well,
Facebook.
they're not going to be on Facebook. No young person's on Facebook.
No.
But
or Instagram.
I think Snap is actually pretty scary, and also the whole zeitgeist of it, where it's disappearing messages.
It was right.
I mean, isn't that kind of perfect for people looking to reach? Doesn't that promote a certain level of lack of accountability? But
in this information, I don't think that's why they did it. I think it was because they thought privacy was critical. That's not why they did it. I was there.
But regardless of what they're, I don't think any of those people are looking to harm children.
Right.
But when they have features that make it easy for adults to reach out to minors, isn't that a problem?
It is, but I don't agree with Jonathan. I think Facebook has done less and been more resistant to dealing with things, and they're the big dog.
I would agree with you. I agree.
And I think Snapchat is. I'd rather have my kids, and I get the locational feature. And if kids open it up, there are things you can do to it to stop that. Right? It's much more open to fixing, and it certainly has had issues around drug dealers and things like that. Every one of these platforms has. I'm just saying, platforms who have had problems like Reddit and Snapchat have always been willing to change in ways and admit in ways Facebook never has. And I ultimately think Facebook doesn't really matter because they're the biggest and they have the most impact on everybody.
No, I think that's a fair point.
Especially through Instagram, and so they should be the most responsible. What?
My kids are on Snap, though.
Yeah.
Aren't your kids on? Or I guess
Snap.
Your kids have aged out of it.
I think Louis doesn't use it as much, but he definitely, that was the only one he used. And there was one incident where I did catch him with a girl on Snap, but using the location features. I told you that, didn't I? I caught he went out. He left the house, and I found him on Snap because he's so dumb with his technology. And I said, "I know exactly where you are. I'm coming to get you." And
Oh, come on. Be a brother.
No.
Help him.
No, actually, his
him
brother
get some.
turned him in. His brother's the one that turned him into me. But
His brother narked on him?
yeah, well, he's like, Lou's not here. And then we let's use the snap feature. It's a long story, but he wrote me the most legendary text of all time, which is why I love him so much. I wrote him and I said, I can't. He took an Uber. He used my Uber to get to some sort of hookup.
So a lot of breadcrumbs. It sounds like he wanted to be
He
caught.
was. I was like, literally. So I'm like, you are so grounded. I texted him, you are so grounded, I'm going to kill you. And he writes back, he goes, sometime it's going to be like that, Chief. And that's what he wrote. I'm going to read it at his wedding. I love that line. Sometime it's going to be like that, Chief. Anyway, let's go.
When
go
I
ahead.
was
You're about to enter into this period of
when I was
child.
a senior in high school, I asked 4 women to my prom, and all of them said no.
Yeah.
And my friend Adam Markman, who I think felt empathy for me,
Wow.
set me up with a woman, actually one of the most beautiful women I've ever met. This woman named Lena. I posted the picture of her on my Instagram. Anyways, Lena and I went to the Windward prom, and I was so excited. I was telling my mom I was going to a prom, and she went with me, and I rented a tuxedo, and I didn't know how to put the fucking thing on because I'd never worn a tuxedo before. I didn't know how to do cufflinks or anything. Anyways, I said, and she said, well, what are you going to do? And I'm like, well, the after party's near here. And I'm like, and I've got a key. I just might bring her back after all of this to here. And I did manage to get her back to my place. And you know, there was firewood in the fireplace that my mom had put in there.
Oh no, your mom's so good.
Wasn't that nice?
Nice.
She looked at me. I was 6'2", 140 pounds with bad acne, and she's like, he needs all the help he can get. He needs all
well, you
the
were about to
help
enter this period with your
can get.
young man that you have, so I hope you've done a good job.
No.
Anyway, my kids are
And you know, my mom used
I
what
would
she
not
said to me.
put
She
fire
said,
in the
when I was talking about my women troubles, which was mostly an inability to get a woman in my life, she would look at me and she'd be like, wine.
Wine. I did do, I mean, you have to do the responsible things, the sex talk, the condom talk, everything else. But just treat women well was the one that I really pushed on them. Anyway, we got to move on.
Well, I told you about the sex talk I had with my son, right?
Yes, you did. We're not going to do that again.
When I went into his room with a banana and a condom.
I know you told this to me.
And he said, what's the banana for? And I said, well, I can't get hard on an empty stomach.
Oh, my
Boom,
God.
never gets old.
You can't tell that joke
Never
over and over
gets
again.
old.
It gets old. It gets old.
Never
All right,
gets
okay,
old.
Once again.
I'll be here all week. Try the veal.
All right. We're going to, the invading Poland one is not allowed anymore.
Oh, by the way.
No,
that's wrong.
That joke's not allowed anymore.
I need to correct it. It's wrong.
What?
The Polish cavalry, that was an attack meant to divert German forces, and it was effective. And it's an insult to the brave men of the Polish cavalry.
Okay.
That attack was actually an effective diversion of German, they weren't tanks, but German armored vehicles. I've had literally 8 Polish historians reach out to me and say, stop
For your
saying
dick
that.
joke. Yeah, stop the dick. I think just because it's not funny. But anyway, let's keep going. It's not the only legal trouble Meta is dealing with. Meta and Apple are the first companies to be fined for violations of the EU's Digital Markets Act. Of course, this is going to happen, antitrust rules. Meta, about $230 million. Apple's $570 million. Both have been giving 60 days to comply. It's hardly any money. So any thoughts on that?
On the antitrust?
Yeah. The Europeans are extracting funds. I think they're probably not going to pay, and they'll just keep, objecting to it for a while.
The question I have, maybe I'm hoping you know more about this than I do, but is it okay, everything's fine and continue? Because that's a parking ticket in terms of their
No, they have
flow.
to comply with the rules. So they have to decide what to do. They can pull out of the things. They could close down services. They've done that in various countries. I think in Canada, Facebook pulled out of news. They don't put news on there. And only right-wing. There was a great piece about how sort of right-wing blather invades social media there because Facebook has pulled news organizations out of it because of something they didn't like. So they'll have to either comply with the rules or they're going to have to leave. I
And
suppose.
this is, okay, so the good guys, you could argue, are winning here. So the EU find them both for violating the new Digital Markets Act, and it's the first time that the law has been enforced. It was $570 million for Apple and $230 million for Meta.
Yeah, I just said that. Yeah.
But we'll say it again.
All right. Okay.
Okay. So, anyways, I'm saying it again.
I know you have research in front of you, but go ahead. Keep going.
And then So what is that? Half of what Apple and Meta make in one day? So
Yeah.
the question for me is it going to happen every month unless they change their behavior? Or is this like that old fine where they effectively
That's it.
are like, okay, you were bad, now continue to be bad, and you got caught this time and we're fining you, but it's not going to
I
really
shall
change
find
future
out.
behavior.
I do not know that. Any Europeans can write us, but I don't know. I think they're going to do other things to not comply because compliance is problematic across the globe, from what I understand. They'll figure out some workaround of some sort, but I will find out and I will let you know next week. Is there any predictions for that Meta case from your perspective? Most people think it's pretty weak, but Systrom's testimony was definitely strong, I think.
Well, I do believe one of these companies, I don't know which one, is going to prophylactically spend something. I think that they're so smart that when they feel the wolves circling,
Google,
they're going to get out ahead of it and go to them and say, all right, what's our blood offering here? What if we spun, what if we sold Chrome to OpenAI, or what if we spun Instagram, I don't know, or WhatsApp? I think we're going to see our first spin in the next 12 months.
All right, that's a good prediction. I don't think it's going to be Facebook. He's very stubborn. But I suspect Google, which has a much tougher case. This case, they feel very confident over at Meta about this particular case, just so you know. They're very confident. Although they sort of communicate on social media like they're desperate, which is interesting. So next one, former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin has lost the retrial of a 2017 defamation lawsuit against the New York Times. Palin filed a lawsuit after the Times ran an editorial claiming she had engaged in a political incitement ahead of the 2011 shooting of Gabby Giffords, incorrectly drawing ties to an advertisement. The Times issued a correction in under 24 hours, but Palin's legal team argued the mistake was actual malice. The bar for actual malice is high, established in 1964 case, very famous, New York Times versus Elon, which the Trump administration is trying to get overturned or changed. Protects news outlets from liability when they publish false statements, as long as they did not do so knowingly or willingly or with actual malice. Supreme Court Justice, again, Thomas and Gorsuch have called for the court to revisit the malice standard for well-known people. If you're not a well-known person, you can sue for defamation much easier. Obviously, Palin is super well-known. So she came back the second time. It was like in 2 hours. The Times had great lawyers, FYI, and also the person who made the mistakes, James Bennett, who has since left the Times, apologized to Palin on the stand this time and actually cried. I know him pretty well. I thought it was quite dignified for him to do so, like to apologize like that. I think it probably really helped the case. I don't think Yeshua's ever going to win, but I think this is over. This is the last stop for her, unless I don't know if she can keep appealing. But any thoughts?
I think she's just a trivia question at this point. She caught this moment of charisma and fire, and then over the course of the last 10 or 12 years, Governor Palin has just revealed herself to not be a serious person.
Yeah, it's a very serious way. You usually do jokes, but go ahead.
Well, and then. I think this is actually really important because I think this would have inspired a ton of.
Yeah.
The reality is, when you're one of the key tenets of America that's really wonderful is pretty much anyone can say pretty much anything about pretty much anybody. If it ends up you're spreading misinformation against someone less powerful than you, not famous, and it creates economic harm or undue stress, then you have a libel or slander case. And I think the law mostly gets it right. And they said in this case, look, you are such a public figure. You continue to say insane things. People respond. People cover you. People are, quite frankly, biased against you, and they're allowed to be biased against you. And she was unable to prove that. To me, this seemed fairly obvious. And
it did. But people were worried about this case and a lot of others, including why George Stephanopoulos, they settled for that thing that he did to Nancy Mace. I think there were probably some sort of text that he was warned several times in that case, or something. So there was something there for the reason Disney caved. There must have been But I talked to people that said they were worried that it would go to the Supreme Court. Like everyone's worried about a Times versus Sullivan case getting to the Supreme Court, which it eventually will, because the right is very much intent on cutting back. You know, they're trying to get rid of SLAPP laws. They're trying to which protects journalists from being, you know, nuisance lawsuits in many states, not every state, which is why they try to sue in places like Texas and other places. But they're on the march trying to overturn these things, just like Trump tried to overturn the Civil Rights Act this week. Anyway, it was good for the New York Times. It was the right decision. You're right. And lastly, late Zappos co-founder Tony Hsieh did have concrete plans for his $1.2 billion fortune when he died. The recently found will, according to the Wall Street Journal. This was interesting. I know Tony very well. It was a sad end to a lovely person who was quite troubled. The document notes that if any family members challenge his wishes, all will receive nothing. Marks $3 million for Hsieh's alma mater, Harvard, and allocates over a whole bunch of money to undisclosed recipients he wanted to surprise. He left a lot of Post-it notes of things, and so he had a real problem, really essentially a drug problem at the end of his life, and they thought he had died without instructions, and he really, the last part of his life during COVID was really disturbing, I think. So, you know, it's a coda. I'm glad he gave money to Harvard and other places, but it just reminded me of a very sad story of technology.
It is really sad. And I remember being invited. He had created this kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of cool e-commerce hub commune kind of
Vegas,
thing.
yeah. In
Vegas. And he invited me to speak. They used to do these little gatherings. And everyone said, "Oh, you should go. It's a total party." And I never went. But his is sort of a tragic lesson on if you don't keep some perspective around why people are around you.
Yeah.
And also, he's a big boy. He made his own decisions. But there's this, I forget the adage, the more famous you become, the lonelier you get, essentially. And he struck me as someone who really struggled with loneliness. And when I met with the head of Warner Brothers Film, and we spitball ideas. And one of my ideas, I think the most, there was that whole raft of big tech. There was Bad Blood, We Crashed, the one about Uber. Mm-hmm. And I said the most interesting one hasn't been told. I think the story of Tony Hsieh is actually the most interesting story.
That's a great idea. It is interesting. I mean, I spent a lot of time with Tony and interviewed him many times. He was a gentle soul. We would have a running joke because he was a hugger. He'd always like, come in. He did this happiness tour, which sort of was a tell. He was so sad. He needed to have a happiness tour. But he's always like, I'm going to hug you. And I said, I'll break your arms if you do. I did a video, which I would send you, but you wouldn't watch, of my tour of their Zappos office. It was a very cult-like kind of, how Japanese companies, they do calisthenics together and that kind of stuff. He was trying to have this sort of happiness thing, and he had a guy who was head of happiness there and would take you on the tour. And, they'd have all this, like, a lot of candy happening, a lot of sugar, a lot of, like, creative stuff in the office with the people, and everyone had their own little teams. I called it forced fun. I was like, I don't want to have any forced fun with people at work. And but he tried to create these ethos, and he did the same thing in Vegas, trying to revive downtown Vegas. And it was a lot of it was very much about him. And he had this holacracy thing. We wrote about it a bunch at Recode. He had a whole theory of management, and it just was. I remember last time I saw him, I thought, he came to Code every year, and he's a very good poker player, and he was drinking. He had a certain drink he drank a lot of. I can't remember. It was not absinthe, but it was like that. It was something Fernet. He loved Fernet. That was it. And he was so sad, you could tell, and was sort of forced jocularity, and but a very gentle soul. Anyway.
So back to me, and I'll relate this to nitrous. I love nitrous, and I have terrible dental hygiene. I've come out of the closet as somebody. I brush my teeth twice a day. That's it. I think I've flossed maybe 6 times in my life.
Oh, I love flossing.
And it's literally like social shaming. And every time I go into the dentist to get my teeth cleaned, they're like, your gums are a little bit inflamed. You really should do this. And I'm like, look, You're going to give me a bunch of shit, a bunch of pics, a bunch of devices. I'm not going to use any of it. I get my teeth cleaned every 3 months. I want you to turn the nitrous up. I want you to turn on Tom Petty. I will be back here in 3 months, but save the fucking speech. I don't have good dental hygiene.
They can't fix it if you don't do that. You need to have everything you have to do.
What
the
are you,
water,
part of
the pulsing
health
water?
Industrial complex? No. If you get your teeth cleaned every 3 months, that helps.
You're gonna have no gums, and I'm gonna laugh at your dentures someday. You need to do those things. You need to have I'm sending you a water pick. You need a water pick at least.
I've tried that.
Water picks are great. I do a water pick twice a day. I love it. It's great. My gums are excellent. Anyway, let's go on a quick break. When we come back, enough with the water pick.
No joke. My youngest son won't come
pick.
to our bathroom anymore because I traumatized him by chasing him around with a water pick. But
okay.
True story.
All right, when we come, it's not a weapon. When we come back,
Elon it's an
heads
awesome
back
weapon
to Tesla, and Scott makes a great prediction. Scott, we're back. Elon says he's shocker of shocker. Elon says he's scaling back this time at DOGE starting in May, claiming his work is mostly done, which means he got nothing done. He will instead be allocating more of his time to Tesla. The announcement came in the wake of Tesla's brutal earnings report, with net income falling 71% during the first quarter of 2025. In a letter to shareholders, the company referenced changing political sentiment that could have meaningful impact on demand for our products in the near term, you think. Tesla's shares were up over 5% following his announcement that he's returning to the company, which is shocking because I think him not returning to the company is probably better for it. And as of this recording, it's still up. We've, of course, been calling this for weeks. Scott, let's listen to what you said back in February.
DOGE and Elon Musk are going to fade away because you can be sure he's doing the math. And he's like, even if I can get rid of all those pesky regulators, I'm still losing money here because my sales are plummeting because the general public across the U.S., much less Europe, when they see these idiots surrendering to Putin and when they see the type of recklessness and they see that they're not saving any money, all they're doing is making our government less competent, you're going to see Tesla sales continue to plummet, Tesla stock continue to go down, and I think he's going to fade back to the corporate sector.
Boom goes Scott Galloway. This is why we want a Webby. This is why. So it all came true. Obviously, besides the shares being up, though, if you take apart the report, they would have been drastically non-profitable had it not been for selling emissions things that Trump is trying to get rid of and investments, I think, in Bitcoin or something like that. It earned this $595 million. And again, these regulatory credits to other automakers, which are going to be rolled back, was critical to that. It wasn't because of cars. Do you think the company, let's go for more, has the company been permanently damaged? And again, I would underscore, it's not just the political stuff. They haven't made a great product. They made the Cybertruck, which is a dud. And they haven't rolled out great products at other car makers because all other car makers are going up in EVs and hybrids. So more than 47% of Americans have a negative view of the company, according to a new CNBC survey. More than 52% have a negative view of Musk. So how do they get out of the brand hole? Also financially, he's touting robo-taxis, which he says will move the financial needle in a significant way. This is not true. He's got competitors with Waymo. He's predicting 1 million units of the Optimus robots in less than 5 years. I think Optimus robots is the Cybertruck of the next thing that he's doing. So what do you see in the next let's have some predictions from Scott Galloway on this topic.
Yeah, but whatever I predict about Tesla tends to be wrong. But
I'm not talking about the stock because I think you were right I'm talking about, can he pull out of this hole? One, can they pull it? I think they can't, but I would love to know what you think.
Well, it all comes down to one thing.
Right.
It's very mundane. It's product. If they come up with a hit product, they're kind of back. The problem is that this has become a meme stock. And keep in mind, automotive revenue declined 20% year on year, Kara.
Right.
They're now the fastest declining automobile company, I think, in the world. I'm having trouble thinking of an automobile company that declined 20% year on year. And what is just so fucking cynical about Elon Musk is he goes after, parachutes into town with a chainsaw and starts talking about government waste. Without government subsidies, this company would have lost money.
Yeah.
It's just so incredibly cynical. It's government largesse and subsidies.
Mm-hmm. These emissions, these regulatory.
That are the only reason that Tesla was in the black. And then the thing about Tesla that said that we're not even an automotive company, and if we are an automotive company, we're an entirely different type of automotive company, is they could point to the fact that electric cars have much fewer parts, dramatically collapsing the supply chain. He milled a lot of his own products, which would increase margin. He's technically the most vertical automaker in the world, and also to Tesla's credit, it's the most American-made car in America, meaning more parts that go into their car are from America. And as a result, in 2022, Tesla had operating margins of 20%, which is staggering. That's at least double what the other big automakers report in terms of operating margin. But what's happened? This year, this quarter, their operating margins have dropped to 2.1%. So this is an unprofitable, government-subsidized. I mean, this is DeLorean. This is a company that's riding on government subsidies.
Explain for the
right
kids
now.
what DeLorean is. Just so you
Oh, do you remember John DeLorean? So
Yes, I do.
John DeLorean was kind of a man's man in the 70s. I think he came from Chrysler or GM, and he was considered the best automobile designer. He designed the Pontiac GTO. And he raised a shit ton of money to start a new automobile company called DeLorean that was famously portrayed in Back to the Future. And he got huge subsidies from the United Kingdom to say, the United Kingdom said, all right, we're going to give this company enormous subsidies to try and re-inspire manufacturing domestically, similar to a tariff. And then the car was kind of underpowered and just didn't have any consumer reception. And then this photo came out of I think it was a warehouse in Ireland showing thousands of DeLoreans just sitting there.
Yeah.
He was on the ropes. The UK said no more subsidies. It was not selling. And basically they set up a sting, the US government, to try and entrap him, and they did, and gave him the opportunity and seduced a guy, in my opinion, unfairly, who was desperate to pull his company out of this tailspin, and he agreed to finance or take part in what was ultimately a cocaine trade, and he was arrested on the spot. I believe he served some time, and then he converted to Christianity. And he was the. You want to talk about a fall from grace? He was also married to one of the most beautiful women and a big model at the time, the Christina Ferrara, I think her name was.
That's right. Yeah.
But he was an American icon that really fell from grace. And there's a couple. I mean, a lot of life lessons here, but more specifically, cars are almost impossible to make on a single platform. Rivian, which is an amazing car, if you buy one for 80 grand, it's costing them 120 grand. It's all about scale.
Yeah.
And when the sales of Tesla go down, it's an especially big hit to earnings, because this is a business all about scale. And when you start descaling, your profits are the tail of the whip. But it's insane that this company and the stock went up. That's what I don't get.
Well, because they think, it's a meme stock. Like, it's never. Here's the problem. He has been warned by his own employees about the Cybertruck. He was warned about different things where they warn him. The other thing is, as we talked about last week, rolling odometers faster, all stuff like that, saying we're going to, like, I think this week he said he keeps going on and on about self-driving. That is not, he is nowhere near. He's been bragging, as you noted, you put the list of things he's told untruths about, or just, he's dreaming. I'll say his dreams of what's going to happen. And so if he's got to deliver and not promise. And the same thing with DOGE. 2 trillion, 2 trillion, not 1 trillion, 2 trillion I'm going to save. And then they can say 160 billion. And even that, David Fahrenthold has taken apart. He probably has cost the government more through this DOGE thing than he has created. What he's done is he's destroyed things the right wing wants destroyed, like USAID or the regulators that are against him. He's not done any significant changes to the way the government works, which, and again, as we both pointed out, maybe the government works a lot better than you think. There's fewer government officials. Evan Spiegel was pointing this out. There's fewer government workers than there were 20 years ago. And there's just more regulations, that's for sure. But he's just hasn't, he has now become an overpromiser, an underdeliverer. And that's what he's doing here with these ridiculous, talking about the robo-taxi. Uber has $12 billion in revenue. That's it. That's far from $1 trillion business. The second one, Optimus robots. Are you going to buy an Optimus robot, Scott? I don't know. Are you, like, 1 million units?
This is okay. These guys are geniuses in saying that we have to put something out there in the future that's exciting and exotic.
Yes, love it.
It will never have to deliver up to, that people can at least fill their dreams and somewhat justify, so that I can have Kathy Wood say there's going to be 1 billion robots and justify my irrational valuation. By the way, I need to correct this. DeLorean was found not guilty. And I just want to go back to this for a second. In '82, he was charged with cocaine trafficking after FBI informant James Hoffman solicited him as a financier in a scheme to sell 220 pounds. It was total entrapment.
Yeah.
At the time, DeLorean was on the verge of bankruptcy, and a guy approaches you who's a federal agent and says, I have a way for you to make a lot of money if you sell 200 pounds of cocaine. And he said, yes. And then they try and charge him. I mean, you want to talk about government overreach. And then,
agreed.
Anyways, but I'm sorry, back to Tesla, the robots, give me a fucking break. I mean, come on. That is even more pie in the sky than a million self-driving Tesla taxis.
Right.
That is just insane. And by the way, the robots they featured at that big event were being controlled by people 50 feet away.
Same thing with the self-driving.
So you want to talk about jazz hands. But people are excited that he's back and focused on Tesla. So good for them. I have learned to stay away from this stock, but this is a company now that is underperforming Ford Motor by a long shot, and yet trades at 70 times earnings, and Ford trades at whatever 10. So
also,
crazy town.
I got to tell you, he did the Cybertruck, guys. He did the Cybertruck, and talk about a disastrous car and the cost when he could have been doing smaller cars the way they were doing them in Japan, adorable ones. I bet they would have done a great job at those, and all the different, there's ones in Japan, there's ones in China. Instead, he had to do his ridiculous, I have a small penis Cybertruck, and this is where we are. We'll see what he does. We'll see. Interesting to see if, one last thing, Steve Bannon, who was at this conference I was at yesterday, was noting, and I can't believe I agree with Steve Bannon on many things, but he said we need an absolute detailed list of the fraud he found, a detailed and checked independently list of the fraud he found, and a detailed list of any data that he has touched so that we know if he took it anywhere. Like these two things, like the data they've been collecting and coalescing around what have these people done with the data? Steve Bannon is correct about this, because it's going to show that very little was saved, and we have to have an independent assessment, which we're not going to have until the end of the Trump administration. But, I would agree with that. And we're not going to get that, but that's we'll see. Well, we don't know what's going to happen to this stock because people have a thing with this guy, but he's definitely on a downward plunge, I think.
Well, let's talk a little bit about DOGE. He's claimed on stage he was going to find $2 trillion in savings. Mm-hmm. He's claimed $150 billion, which is obviously a lot less than $2 trillion. And so far, it looks as if it's approximately, they claim, now they're saying $150 billion. It looks like it's more like $60 billion, and they can't even validate or confirm those savings. If you were to look at this as an audit of a $7 trillion company, the fact that they have gone in with full license and what I'll call incredible adjectives and embellishments and exaggerations around quote-unquote fraud and waste, the U.S. government has come out with literally the cleanest bill of health of any organization that would undergo this type of reckless audit. The auditors weren't there to give them a clean bill of health. The auditors were there to try and make them look stupid and exaggerate inefficiencies.
And get rid of certain things, as I noted. Yeah.
And every time they think they found something, or not every time, but most of the time they think they found fraud, waste, or inefficiency, and they posted it, someone did a little bit of research on Google and said, actually, that's not accurate. You're exaggerating. Yeah. The savings or the waste or the fraud here. And by the way, I don't think there's been a single case where they've said there's fraud here and we're charging these people. Yeah. So what entity, what organization in the world could you have this type of bias, aggressive, unbridled audit that's doing $700 billion a year in sales, much less $7 trillion, and get this clean bill of health?
Although I don't even think they did a very good job. Like, who knows what's there? I'm certain there's fraud all over the place, Medicaid and everything else, but they didn't even
do the Pentagon.
It was all, and a lot of this spending it's stuff we can't touch. And that's the real problem, whether it's Medicare, whether it's defense spending. There's certain stuff that can't be touched, Social Security, and it's a bigger problem of, listen, at the heart, we shouldn't have these deficits, these enormous deficits. We overspend. We have too many regulations, and that's a really good thing to attack. But this has just been a ridiculous jazz hands.
This was nothing but a weapon of mass distraction. If the U.S. was a household It makes $50,000 a year. It spends $70,000. And it has household debt of $370,000. And the bad news is that all of the kids in that house are going to have to inherit that debt even after mom and dad die. And we don't want to have an adult conversation. The adult conversation is the following.
It's a chainsaw.
If you believe that fiscal responsibility means not spending $7 trillion on $5 trillion in tax revenue, all roads lead to the same place, folks. You either have to cut costs or cut spending, or you have to raise taxes. And if you want to cut spending, you have to go after one or all of three areas. And that's either entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, defense spending, or the interest on our debt. Those are the three. If you don't go after one or all of those things, you're not serious about cutting our expenses. Or you have to acknowledge that the wealthiest in our society have figured out a way to weaponize the tax code and have an alternative minimum tax. The majority of very wealthy people pay very little in tax relative to their income, or increase corporate taxes. And what's the answer, folks? All of the fucking above.
Yeah, but you're not going to
nobody.
They talked about it this week, Trump people, and then they just have been indicating no taxes on rich people.
Well, when we interviewed Leader Jeffries, I think there's an opportunity for the Democrats to say we're the adults in the room. We're going to have to means test Social Security, move the age up. People like Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway should not get Social Security. It's called a Social Security tax, meaning you pay into it and might not get it back. It's for the better common good. It's not called the Social Security Pension Fund. We are going to have to figure out a way to get our medical costs from $13,000 a person down to $6,500. We're going to do that by lowering the age eligibility of Medicaid and Medicare, which do a great job, until we have nationalized health care. We're going to have to cut military spending at some point or make it more efficient. And we're going to have to announce that we are going to put $40 billion a year, $7,000 a year in every baby's 401k, that they don't have access till they're 65, and announce that we are doing away with all Social Security in 65 years. And then in 30 years, interest rates will come down as people see a light at the end of the tunnel where we'll get to do away with this $1.3 trillion and growing tax on young people. But nobody wants to have a fucking
Galloway
serious
is running for
conversation.
president. That's a really nice, I like all that. Scott. Well,
but the Democrats have an opportunity here, because the reality is the swing voters in every election that determines the president, it's not based on transgender rights. It's not based on Ukraine. As much as important as those issues are, they don't swing elections. What swings elections is people in their 30s who are moderates who basically vote on who they think will give them the best prospects to establish economic security and have a reasonable life. And it swings back and forth. It's a swing issue. And over the last 40 years, Democratic administrations have created 40 million jobs. Republicans have created 1 million. Democrats need to seize. We're the adults in the room. We have to have an honest, hard conversation around our deficits and our fiscal and monetary policy, because this is not sustainable. And you know what? People will respect it. And then when I asked Leader Jeffries, what they say is, well, at some point we're going to have that conversation. At some point, tomorrow needs to be today. I think citizens are ready for this conversation.
No, today, yesterday. I agree. I think you need to run for president, as Ed said. Apparently, Ed was telling you should run for president. That's a very good. You should be more involved in politics, Scott. I think you should. Anyway, I'll note. Also, Alphabet. By the way, Tesla we think is in the crapper. I'll note.
By the way,
Alphabet.
I just want to acknowledge. I've been doing research. You blew my mind with the notion of a combined Tesla, XAI, and SpaceX. And I'm just like, that has totally blown my mind about.
Good. As long as you attribute it to me. Just attribute it.
I do, but the idea of him merging all of those companies, I can't wrap my head around what that would mean.
He's got to. It's the only move. It's the only move. It's a move, and he would do it. That's the two things. I knowing him, I don't know him well anymore, but knowing him as I had known him, and it's the move. It's the jazz hands move of all time. It'll be loud, noisy. It'll be, what a genius. Here's the last thing I'm going to say about this. All you people that were slathering over Elon when he was visiting Congress and we all love DOGE. You don't all love DOGE. You are, the Republicans should be embarrassed for all the kiss-assery they did to this guy and what he was doing and abrogating their responsibilities as legislators. Just handing it over to this guy and saying, you fix it, was the most irresponsible thing. And someday there is going to be a reckoning at some point, and you are not going to be you've not bathed yourself in any kind of glory. You bathed yourself in embarrassment and suck-uppery, and so that to me is really the lesson here. We'll see where it goes, but I see why Donald Trump did it. The rest of you are grotesque. So is Donald Trump. But anyway, I'll note Alphabet earnings are coming after we record, so we don't know what's going to happen or anything they might say about the case that they've lost. But we'll discuss next week because they're really at a crossroads. Google certainly is. All right, Scott, let's go on a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about Trump trying to calm the markets after his own comments created chaos once again. Scott, we're back. It's another whiplash week on Wall Street. President Trump's attacks on the Fed Chair Jerome Powell, calling him a major loser and criticizing his policies, rattled the market earlier this week, triggering a major sell-off of stocks and bonds. Trump later said he had no intention of firing Powell. By the way, he can't. It's very hard to do so it doesn't matter what he thinks. He also indicated some easing of tariff tension with China, although China has sort of pushed back on that. Comments did still fuel a market rebound. But as of Thursday morning, China is calling any reports of tariff talks, quote, baseless rumors, directly aimed at Trump there, sending the Dow down briefly, although the S&P 500 has been staying steady. The markets seem to have spooked Trump, as they should. He met with CEOs of Target, Walmart, and Home Depot on Monday. It was interesting Amazon wasn't there, but who reportedly warned about tariffs leading to price surges and empty shelves within weeks. A dozen states also sued to block Trump's tariff, arguing he doesn't have the authority to impose them. Even though he says he's not firing Powell, he's been undermining him. He's going to blame him for all this with the attacks. He continues to act like he has some sort of control over this. Let's talk about that for a minute. Well, actually, let me go through everything. And with China, Trump said this week that tariffs on Chinese goods will come down substantially, but won't be zero, and that the U.S., they weren't before, and the U.S. and China are actively talking, which I said China denies. One White House senior official told the Wall Street Journal that China tariffs would likely get reduced roughly between 50 and 65%. Another Trump blink seems imminent. Again, Scott Bessent and Elon Musk got in a fight. I think it's sort of in our rearview mirror. Scott Bessent won with the IRS pick. This kind of chaos is just insane, it seems. Like he's just shooting himself in the foot over and over again and then declaring victory when he goes back on the stupid thing he did. Let's hear what you think about this, Scott Galloway.
Well, the only two things you have to remember in a negotiation are not to make it emotional, not to have it be a win-lose, and to always show a credible willingness to walk away. This guy gets an F on each of those. He's insulted them. His vice president has called them peasants. He makes it emotional. He pisses off. People are human. If I'm a Canadian, I don't want to work with you. I'm willing to sacrifice my own economic prosperity.
Travel's down. Everything's down.
You want to talk about, and I was thinking about it today, Bill Ackman, on an unrelated note, Bill Ackman came out with this tweet that sent Hertz stock up 100%. And he said he'd been aggregating a stake for a long time. And he said that because of these tariffs, the value of Hertz's automobile fleet it's a $14 billion fleet or $12 billion fleet. The cost of cars is going to go up so much because of these tariffs that it's an underappreciated asset in the sense that their Hertz fleet is now worth $1.2 billion more. And I'm like, this is the ultimate interpretive dance. Because one, that's like saying my liver and my lungs are more valuable than they are to me. Well, I'm sort of fond of them. Like, how are you going to harvest, unless Hertz announces it's selling its auto fleet, which they're not going to.
Well, they sell some of it. They do have a division that sells cars.
Yeah, but they have a division that buys cars.
Yes, that's correct.
So it should be a net neutral. Right? Actually, a net negative because new cars will be more, those costs will be more than the increase in the value of the used cars you sell. And then the countervailing force of this, what I'll call gymnastics and interpretive dance to try and turn chicken shit into chicken salad, is that the majority of the automobile rental market is based on tourism. And tourism is absolutely crashing. And let's just talk about reality here as we're trying to boost the manufacturing sector that employs 11 million people. Has anyone noticed while we were sleeping that tourism is fucking crashing and also employs 12 million people? So all of this interpretive dance around these sycophants trying to either pump a stock, they have an activist position in or trying to claim that this guy's playing 4D chess just can't look at data.
Right.
And also, back to Trump, he's been very
I like
emotional.
that you turned on Blackman the way I had, but go ahead.
He's been, I mean, it's like, I
happened
would
to
describe the
this
day he
person?
announced that as, remember when you go to interpretive dance, you look at modern art and you're like, oh, you want to be cool and you want to say, oh, it's beautiful. And then you look at the next person and you're like, this makes no fucking sense.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, this is, his announcement that they have this undervalued asset is really modern art / interpretive.
Also, may I note, they have a lot of Teslas that nobody wants to rent. They did this whole, remember, they have tons of Teslas they
When's
can't
the last
move.
time you rent? It's a shitty business in structural decline.
Agreed, but I'm just
that
saying
is
they
highly
did that
levered.
whack deal. Every time they try to give me one, I'm like, no, I shall not. And apparently nobody wants to rent a Tesla.
Anyways, it speaks to his brand, to Bill Ackman's brand, that he puts out a tweet of an insane
He's such a
thesis that
thirsty
makes
piece
no
of
sense
shit.
if you actually
He's so
look at the
thirsty.
data.
So
Well, the
thirsty.
stock doubled. You got to give it to him. The guy's
Well,
brand
whatever.
clearly still means something in the market. But
guess.
back to Trump. Highly emotional, creating enemies and agita where he doesn't need to, that will only reduce our negotiating leverage when people will put their own ego now, like him, ahead of actual prosperity and fidelity to their stakeholders and to citizens and to their economy. And two, a credible willingness to walk away. He imposes a 145% tariff and then hours later says that the tariffs on Chinese goods will come down substantially but won't be zero. Then why the fuck did you go to 145%?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
This guy he is competing against people who are willing to starve millions of their own people, and he thinks he's going to intimidate them with 145. But they're going to come down. They're going to we're about to enter the stage where they try to figure out a way to basically somehow put lipstick on a pig here and call victory and stop all this nonsense. The tariffs are going to be remarkably similar to what they were before all of this nonsense. But you're going to have all these people trying to spin how it's some sort of great
and then the
victory.
deals, well, they're coming to me for deals. They're trying to kiss my ass, that whole thing. Oh, stop, you sad, pathetic.
All we have done here is massively erode brand America. It's gone from freedom, generosity, military might, prosperity, risk aggressiveness, opportunity, rule of law, to toxic uncertainty. And that brand does not command margins. It commands
So what does he
negative
do?
margins.
Okay, look, first of all, Besson's trying to affect him, obviously, and he seems to have gained a bit of an upper hand against the clown show of Howard, whatever his name is, and Elon. And there was an altercation, a very loud altercation between Besson and Musk over IRS head, which the Treasury Secretary should pick, FYI, not Elon Musk. He was trying to pick a sycophant to take over the IRS, where our money comes from. What would you do if you were Besson right now? Like, what besides leave, like immediately? What would you do?
Well, he's kind of already done it. He clearly leaked that interaction, and he's saying, "I'm on top, and I've had it with this guy."
Yeah.
Trump is scared. Besson is seen as like a sycophant, but is potentially the guy in the Oval Office that will take stuff off his desk so he doesn't even see it, that he is sort of an adult in the room. He has a reputation versus Lutnick that's just considered, a clown that is now engaged in full-scale corruption with his son starting a crypto company. Jesus Christ.
I know. The crypto stuff.
Just when you thought this couldn't get any more corrupt. Besson is seen as a very credible guy, and behind the scenes is basically saying, okay, I'm going to do my best here. I know this is fucking batshit crazy. We know where this goes. Blink, blink, blink. Try and run Vaseline over the lens of incompetence here and pretend this is a victory.
I never made this mistake, and I'm not.
The tariffs are going to look remarkably similar to where they were before. Mm-hmm. And all that's happened is we've eroded our image around the world to the detriment of
So what would you do? You're sitting in the Oval Office. He has you in. You, for some reason, go, and he's listening to you. What would you say to Trump to do right now? Besides,
if he would listen to me,
stop taking whatever you're taking.
I would immediately pretend to have discussions, declare victory and leave. Just like literally find a country that's willing to do something for you, come up with a bunch of fake reasons for why this was anything but what it was, which was insanely damaging, and literally get back to the economy and try and repair as many of our alliances as possible. and go on the mother of all behind the scenes apology tours, because this is going to start showing up in earnings calls. I think China might say, oh, you want to go back to where we were? Fuck you. You've been out banging hookers and doing blow and ignoring our children. Now you've decided you want to be married again? Sorry, boss. Sorry, I'll be at my sister's.
It's a nice metaphor. Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyways, speaking for a friend.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think the Chinese and the Europeans are now like, what a life without these obnoxious Americans.
100%.
Like, hey, I think a divorce sounds great. Yeah. Like, I'm sure that's what they're thinking. Do you know what I mean?
My tennis pro is texting me.
Wait a minute. Just a minute here.
My tennis pro is texting. My friends are going to St. Bart's. That sounds pretty good.
He needs to. Oh, what an idiot. What a fucking
idiot.
I mean, the thing is, if he did a couple of things, all his stupid followers would like clap like the seals.
Yeah, they'll pretend that it was genius and 40 chess. So move to that part of the program as soon as possible.
Right.
I mean, you literally have to put the fire out here. You have to put the fire out. But I don't know if he's... But think about the negotiation strategy.
He's been listening to Wall Street. Wall Street is the one that speaks with the
adult
truth.
In the room is the tenure. We've been saying that.
Yeah.
I'm glad Basent is there, but I do think the raft of them. I think we're on the cusp of a few of them being fired.
Yeah, Lutnick should go. What a thirsty.
Well, not even
he is.
Most of them should go, but I think he's going to try and blame a lot of this on incompetence and saying, I got some bad information. These folks did the wrong thing. I've moved them out. He's gonna throw a bunch of them as a into the volcano, if you will.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But
they're certainly not going to tax the rich.
Look, a step back from the wrong direction is a step in the right direction. So if you were really advising the guy, you'd say as elegantly, as gracefully, and as respectfully as possible, you need to stop this shit really, really quickly. And behind the scenes, call Prime Minister Carney and say, congratulations. And by the way, you're a fantastic friend. A lot of this was posturing. I want to apologize to you personally. What can we do? This makes this better for both of us.
All he needs is affirmation. It's so sad. It's such a sad state at this age in his life that this is all he needs. But here we are. Anyway, Scott, one more quick break. We'll be back for predictions. Okay, Scott, let's hear our predictions. You've kind of let loose a few during the show here, but pick one. Some good ones.
This is always dangerous, but I'm going to do it anyways. Alphabet's reporting. We're talking about Thursday. Alphabet's reporting at the end of the day, and I think rumors of Alphabet's struggles have been greatly exaggerated. I still think while ChatGPT is ascending dramatically and does present an existential threat to search, YouTube is just an absolute juggernaut. And you talk about Waymo. I just think this company is so well run, and Google continues to be the largest toll booth in the history of mankind. I think that they're going to beat and I think they're going to beat expectations this afternoon, because I think some of those expectations have been beaten down. And then another one, I think in the next 12 to 24 months, we're going to see a spin prophylactically in big tech for the first time. And then
pick one. I'm going to pick. We'll each pick one. I say YouTube. Well, maybe the advertising.
I think it's the
stuff.
ad business.
Ad business, you're right.
I'm sorry, ad business for Alphabet.
We would like YouTube, but it's probably the ad business.
And then the most interesting one, and this is, I'm putting words in your mouth or taking your words, and I will credit you. Tesla right now has, I think it's like a $750 billion market cap, right? And when you think about when you're doing acquisitions or mergers, you want to do them when your stock, it's $806 billion. You want to do mergers when you have a really strong valuation, because you end up, Steve Case sold AOL when he knew there was no way it was going to be worth a fraction of that in a matter of months or years. Yeah. So that's when you sell your company. The problem is no one will buy Tesla for $805 billion except XAI, right? Or SpaceX.
Yeah.
And so your idea is so interesting, because what he could try to do is say, okay, jazz hands will only last so long. At some point, people start, saying, okay, enough is enough here, folks. That $800 billion market cap is going to come way down. So the idea of taking a large revenue base, which you get from an automobile company, putting on top of it the impression and the valuation of AI with the data set of X, and also maybe some of the gross and riz and unbelievable coolness of SpaceX, that would be a lot. Maybe he keeps that independent. But I think your idea is really insightful, that the way to maintain that ridiculous $800 billion valuation is to cash it in now. And he'll maintain a huge stake and potentially do kind of one that's going to 0.5 plus 1 plus 1 equals 4 or 5. I think you're right. I think there's going to be, I think Tesla is going to be folded in to
and
another,
then they're an AI company
or merged.
Or an AI company that makes robots.
I love that.
Self-driving.
Because when you said it, the moment you said it, I thought, that would be really fucking smart.
Like that.
From a shareholder perspective.
Yeah,
Anyways,
it makes sense. It's also like him. It's very like him. He's hiding
very
things.
Very bold. And he has control of his board.
Right, yeah.
He doesn't care. He'll tell the board this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
He's not scared of shareholder lawsuits.
I wonder if he'll take it private then. There's not a lot of revenue in any of these things,
Can't take
right?
it private. No one will fund it.
Yeah,
no
that's
one
right.
will
There's
finance
not a lot
it.
of revenue. Well, I don't think the Starlink part. I mean, the SpaceX is part of it. They don't. My guess, they don't make that much money. They probably. And they've been hurt themselves, but I think they're very expensive to run that thing. And I'd love to actually see the numbers from that. If someone wants to send them to me, I'd love to see them. I don't think they're wildly profitable by any stretch of the imagination, but
And finally, Kara, the prediction, the geopolitical prediction. So Donald Trump is having a huge impact globally, including what leaders are elected or not elected, but it wasn't the impact he thought he was going to have. In the Canadian elections for Prime Minister, my prediction is that Mark Carney of the Liberal Party is going to prevail, and that is after overcoming a 25-point deficit coming into the year. And why is the Liberal Party going to prevail here? Donald Trump. He has so pissed off Canada, and the Conservative Party nominee for Prime Minister is aligned with Trump and considered a more Trumpian candidate. And boy, has Canada turned off Trump. So in sum, Trump has elected, in my opinion, or will elect, Prime Minister Mark Carney of the Liberal Party, and has swung the Canadian elections 25 points because of how repellent they find Donald Trump, and the Conservative Party has been contaminated by Trump. So he is getting world leaders elected, just not the world leaders that everyone had anticipated, or certainly not the ones he had hoped for. In sum, I think the underdog here, Mark Carney, is about to be the next Prime Minister of Canada, solely because of the unpopularity of our American president. Do you have a prediction?
I don't. I predict I'm going to go to White House correspondent dinner parties this weekend.
Oh, I was going to go, but I'm not in town.
Why not?
I got asked by a friend of yours to be their date, and I was really excited. She's totally cool. I won't say who it is, but
a friend of mine asked you to be
a friend of ours.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. You should have. Oh, I know who it is. You should have come.
Emily Ratajkowski. Just saying.
No, it's not Emily Ratajkowski. There's a bunch. There's every single media company, like Axios is having something, Substack.
It looks like so much fun.
Substack's
You've been,
having
right?
a bunch. The parties are fun. I hate to say it. Parties are fun. I don't go to the event itself ever, but there's like NBC's having a party after the French embassy.
Ooh, the NBC party.
No, it's fun. It's fun. I'm telling you, I love that French embassy. It's so ridiculous. It's so like end times kind of partying kind of stuff.
I was wrong. I don't want to go. You have literally said nothing that sounds remotely fun.
Let me think. UTA has a really cool party. It's really fun.
Oh, I had that. You just take erythromycin. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. UTA?
No, they're fun. They're fun. They're fun parties. They are indeed fun parties. And my friend Tammy has the famous White House Correspondents' Dinner brunch.
I'm convinced Tammy's running the CIA.
She's running the CIA.
She's so quiet, and then she'll pop up and be like, The president of Gabon wants to meet with you to talk about a shipping lane deal. And I'm like, what the fuck? Who is this woman?
She's great. She has a famous brunch that's really fun. That's really fun, actually.
Where did she get all her power?
She's everywhere. She's everywhere. She's a fixer.
I couldn't get my visa done. I couldn't get my passport. And she's like, give me 5 minutes. And all of a sudden, like the ambassador to Britain is calling me and sending me a car with my passport. It's like, who is this woman?
Tammy Haddad is the queen of White House Correspondents' Weekend. She is.
She's Michael Clayton. She's a total fixer. Seriously.
She's also lovely. May I say she brings the best toys
and
for
went
my
to
children.
Pitt. Went to the University of Pittsburgh.
She's from Pittsburgh. She was in Pittsburgh this weekend. She's the best. We love that Tammy Haddad. Anyway, we want to. So I wish you were here. We'd have a good time.
I met Tammy Haddad before I met you. We were doing a conference together. I don't think I'd ever met you, or I'd met you for a podcast, but we went to, I think it was South by Southwest, but I showed up and this woman came up to me and she was so nice and so in my face. I'm like, who is this very friendly woman? And I said, and I saw, it was so adorable. In the back, it was in the makeup room. There was this little adorable boy asleep on the couch. And I'm like, I should probably pregame with Kara. And they go, where is she? And she goes, and then they pointed to the little boy. You were sleeping on the couch. You look like a 9-year-old boy. It was so loud. I'm like, she can sleep here? And that was one of my first images of you, where you were just on a couch sleeping with hundreds of people around you.
I love to sleep.
Like
I'm such a good sleeper.
You're like Winston Churchill.
I can sleep anywhere. It's so true. Anyway, Tammy Haddad's great, and she's very tall, and she's got this great shock of white hair, and she's fantastic. She's a fantastic lady. Anyway, Tammy, good luck this weekend. I will see you at the party. We want to hear from you. Send us your questions about business, tech, or whatever's on your mind. Go to nymag.com/pivot to submit a question for the show, or call 855-51-PIVOT. Elsewhere in the Scott and Kara universe, this week on Prof G Markets, Scott, who's on a tear, spoke with Ryan Peterson, the founder and CEO of Flexport, who he replaced someone that he brought in from Amazon. It's a leader in global supply chain management, about the impact of tariffs. What a great person to tap. Let's listen.
If they don't change anything and this 145% duty sticks on China, it'll take out like mass bankruptcies. You're talking like 80% of small business that buys from China will just die. And millions of employees will be unemployed. I mean, it's sort of why I'm like, they obviously have to back off the trade. Like, that can't be that they just do that. I don't believe that they're that crazy.
That's a great idea to do an interview there, Scott. That's great. Really interesting.
I love supply chain stuff. I invested, one of my best investments of the last few years was I invested in a company called 0100, which was supply chain research. I think if you look at every
dull investments, that's where you make your big bucks, isn't it? Dullish.
Quick lesson. When you're thinking about how to allocate and invest your most precious assets, your financial capital, and even more precious, your human capital, it's very easy. ROI on the X side of the scale, sex appeal on the x-axis. It essentially, the sexier the business, the lower the ROI. If someone wants you to invest in a members club downtown for artists and creatives, join the club, do not invest. If someone wants you to invest in software as a service for scheduling healthcare maintenance workers, if it sounds so fucking awful you wouldn't want to work there, that's where you write a check.
Okay.
Because anything that's sexy is overinvested, which drives down returns. The less sexy, the more return on your invested capital. Also think about that in terms of your career. If you're going for something sexy, you better get bright green lights that you're in the top 1%. Otherwise, find something boring. And this is what creates passion, mastery, artisanship, and be able to take care of your kids and your parents.
I love that, Scott. So don't invest in Scott Galloway because he's dead sexy.
Hello, ladies.
Okay, that's the show.
Hello.
Thanks for listening to Pivot, and be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll be back next week. Scott, read us out.
Today's show was produced by Lara Naaman, Zoë Marcus, and Taylor Griffin. Ernie Intertot engineered this episode. Jim Mackil edited the video. Thanks also to Drew Burrows, Ms. Severio, and Dan Shalon. Nishat Kurwa is Vox Media's executive producer for podcasts. Make sure you've subscribed to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening to Pivot from New York Magazine and Vox Media. You can subscribe to the magazine at nymag.com/pod. We'll be back next week for another breakdown of all things tech and business.